What does it take to build some of the most iconic and complex structures in America? Projects that push the limits of engineering, safety, and persistence. And how do you turn 25 years in the steel industry into lessons for leadership, innovation, and growth? Welcome to Industry Ignited, the podcast where we sit down with trailblazers shaping the future of industrial and B2B sectors. I'm your host, Dr. Leeanne Aguilar. Today, I'm joined by Daniel Williams, CEO of Steel Design and Build, and a seasoned steel construction consultant whose career spans from starting as a field laborer to leading multi-million-dollar projects as an executive and consultant. Daniel has helped companies streamline operations, improve profitability, and deliver standout steel projects, always with a focus on persistence and people. Daniel, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I'm excited to dive into our conversation today. You've spent 25 years in the steel industry. But let's start at the beginning. What drew you into steel construction and what kept you there?
It was just a fluke opportunity. We ended up meeting someone that that was always looking for young, hardworking men. And my brother and I were both searching for a job at that time. I was actually in college, kind of messing around, not even being serious. And my brother had gotten out of the Marine Corps and was looking for a career. So we found a guy and he said, "Hey, this is really hard work, but we pay you really well." And we started working on military installations in 1999. And it was definitely really hard work. And the paycheck was good. You know, when we compared that with other people our age, then we were making more money, but we were definitely working a lot harder than anybody else we knew. So it didn't let us down on either end of that. But then, we struggled through the first couple of years. It was very difficult, but it was nice that we were making enough money that we could actually support a family and start families, and which is hard to do. It's getting harder now, but and then just sticking to it was probably the pride in the accomplishments that we made, and seeing that progress, and also knowing that we were doing something that a lot of other men wouldn't do, because a lot of other men wouldn't put up with the first couple of years of really hard work in order to get there. They would always quit and go do something else. And so it was kind of a sense of pride to where, that you're separate. You're a little bit more roughneck than the majority of the other guys that are doing other things.
Yeah, and I remember from our initial conversation, you presented it something like a challenge. Like, didn't the guy who brought you on basically challenge you in a way and let you know that, most people don't stick with it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he would definitely, when you first started out, that's what he would always start out with, was he would say, "Yeah, I don't know if you could make it. Like, you might not be tough enough." And it is, as a man, he's kind of calling you out and challenging you and saying, "Hey, I don't know if you're tough enough. Like, I don't know if you can handle it." And then he continued to do that over those years. I worked with him for 5 years, and he would bring out all these guys and he would say, "You know what? I don't think he can handle it. I don't think he can make it. I don't think he's tough enough." And a lot of guys weren't. A lot of guys would quit within hours. And then,
oh, wow.
Yeah, some guys wouldn't even make it the first day. And then some guys might make it a day or two, and some might make it a few weeks. But, doing very hard work in hard conditions, and then, hot weather, and also with a boss that was not the friendliest, that would always kind of, push guys out. But over time, that became a sense of pride, to where you're doing something that most men can't do or won't do.
Right.
And then as you did it, it kind of got easier. I mean, it was still hard work, but you just got used to it. But I used to always say, there's a difference between a guy coming out here and working to make a paycheck and a guy that's coming out here to support his family. So there's a lot of men that'll go out there and they'll work extremely hard, and they'll put up with a lot of hard conditions because they need to provide for their family. So I would always give them credit for that. And I got to tell you, we were surprised a couple of times by guys that would come out that didn't seem like they could make it, and they did very well because they took pride in being able to support their families.
So it's the motivation that's behind that drive, right? If you have a reason to do something, then you're more likely to succeed.
That's
I
right.
think, because there's something else driving that.
Maybe to quit. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it does make it hard to quit, especially when people are depending on you.
That's
You know,
right.
it's more than just you and your livelihood at stake. You have a family, other people depending on you. Now, you've worked your way up from the field through executive leadership. How has that ground up experience shaped your approach to leadership and consulting?
I think it's vital because, now I'm kind of in a group of people. I'm surrounded by all these construction executives that have their MBAs, and I didn't even finish my bachelor's degree. So when you're surrounded by guys like that, then to be able to hold your own, my knowledge of the bottom end of the trade of how the buildings go together, how long things take, how many men it takes to do certain things. A lot of those guys that go to college and they get a degree in construction management, things like that, they've never done that. So they don't know and they don't fully understand all of the processes from start to finish. So it is a benefit, even though, I mean, a lot of those guys know a lot of things I don't know. But when it comes to my industry, to knowing steel, knowing how the buildings go together, safety, the processes, like a lot of times these safety companies come out with safety processes that are just ludicrous and they don't make any sense because you can't build a building if all your arms and legs are tied behind you and you're totally safe.
Yeah,
It's very difficult to do the work we do and be completely safe. So sometimes I consult with those companies and we try to find a happy medium where we can do things safely, but then we can still be productive and still get the job done. Because, for instance, if I bid a project and we say we're going to get it done in 1,000 man hours, but then they bring in all these safety restrictions that we didn't know about, it's going to take us longer. We're going to end up losing money. And it's just not fair to the subcontractor to try to hold them to new safety standards when they weren't aware of that when they're bidding the job, because all of that stuff, it adds money, it adds costs and man hours to a project.
right. Yeah. And every career has turning points where things don't go as planned. What's a challenge or setback in your journey that taught you the most about resilience and growth in this industry?
Being a contractor is really different. And you and I discussed this in the initial discussions. Was when you're a contractor and you commit to these things, you can't quit. You have to push through the tough days and the tough times, and even a lot of horrible situations that you might find yourself in. We get into projects and sometimes things go off the rails and things happen that have absolutely nothing to do with us and they're out of our control, and it makes it to where it's very difficult. You just want to give up sometimes and just say, you know what, screw this, I'm going to quit and I'll walk away. Well, you can't do that when you're a contractor. As an employee, you can do that. You can say, hey, you know what, this is going down a bad road, I'm just going to look for a new job. And that part of it is not the funnest lesson to learn. But once you've been through that and you realize I can't quit, there is no quit, you have to see these things through, then it changes your mindset. So next time you see something difficult, you can't quit. So that's not even a discussion. You just say, you know what, we have to figure this out. We have to get through this, and we should just do it quickly, because the more time we waste, the worse it's going to get. And so
Right.
I try to mentor project managers and other executives in that realm to say, you know what, sometimes things seem impossible and it's not. You can call, like, phone a friend, go sit down and try to take a break and get a fresh mind so you can have a good fresh perspective on the problem. But whatever you do, just understand that quitting is not the answer. And so I
Yeah.
think that's a really good part of this business, is that you let people know we're going to have tough days, but we're going to get through it and we'll figure it out. Like luckily for me, I've got a lot of mentors that have been in the business longer than I have, that were actually my customers, to where I could call them any day of the week and I could say, hey man, I'm just having a horrible day, everything's going wrong, blah blah blah. And I got to tell you, I'm actually surprised at some of the guys that I've had where I call them and I don't plan on complaining, but I end up complaining, and they'll go, you know what, you're going to be fine. Like, just take a breather, take a break, go home and see your kids for a little while, and then jump back in tomorrow morning, full force. And it's always nice to have those guys, give you encouragement and kind of, kick you in the butt, or, hit you on the head and say, dude,
Right.
Stop
We
complaining.
all need those. Yeah, all
Yeah,
need those reminders sometimes. Absolutely. Because, yeah, sometimes things just totally don't go as planned, like you mentioned. And it's not always anything that we have control over.
that's
Some
right.
things happen that are unexpected, and we still have to deal with it. So, but I'm hearing it helps you to develop resilience,
Hmm.
a sense of resilience, and also confidence over time, knowing that you can do hard things. You can get through the hard times, and also having people that you can call that can support you through those times, that can remind you that, you know what, that's something just happened. It's not the end of the world, and you'll get through it.
Well, I tell you what, anyone that's been in construction knows that there are so many variables. So we are professional problem solvers is really what we are, because it's every single day. Every single day there's something that comes up. A truck will blow up, or it'll rain and it's muddy and the guys don't want to do any work, or you got half your guys didn't show up, and there's always a problem. And so you can get all frustrated and angry and all that stuff, but you're going to do that every day, if you don't learn how to deal with it. And so we just try to do the best you can every day with what you have. Once you learn that, I think that it's a lot easier to deal with those frustrating things, because there's just so many moving parts. And the bigger the company or the bigger the project, the more variables, the more opportunity to have things just not go right. And so just keeping a good attitude and staying on top of it, which I'm kind of preaching to myself here, but you know,
It's great advice. No, I think it's really valuable insight. I mean, just that, because you're right. I mean, huge projects have a lot of moving parts and so many variables that, like you mentioned. So anything could go wrong, and there's no way to have the answers or know in advance like what's going to happen, right?
oh
Like you
yeah,
can't see the future. You don't know what's coming down the pipeline, and so but having that attitude of we'll figure it out, and knowing it's really about mindset at that point, and the approach you take when you're confronted with the problem, and not needing to have the answer right away
that's
to
right.
every situation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and also learning to ask for help. I mean, I do think there's a lot of that where, you kind of do the best you can. You try to see what's going on. And the more you surround yourself with good people, you'll be surprised at how many people around you have already been through something like that. And they'll say, hey, you know what? We saw this back in, 2010, and they have advice because they've been through it. And I
Right.
think that's one of the nice things about, I mean, people always joke about old people or old guys in the trade and stuff like that. And I love that part of it. I'd love to sit and talk to those people, because there's so much knowledge
Yep.
in their years of doing business, to where they've been through recessions, they've been through all these iterations of different things. So I think part of the lesson is just being able to look at something and say, you know what, like, if I call some people, maybe they can give me some advice or some encouragement that'll help take a little bit of this weight off my back, and then help you live to fight another day.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much wisdom that comes with experience, that comes through going through all of the trials. And right, if you can learn from other people without having to make the same mistakes, then you're that much further ahead.
That's right.
So, right, it's great to have those people to call in. Now, you've been part of some incredible projects, stadiums, airports, even the Hollywood Bowl. Which project pushed you the hardest, and what did you learn from it?
Hmm. We actually did a project in New York City called the Beachfront Restoration Project, and that one right there, I tell you what, there was so many moving parts, and we went into it, really optimistic and excited about being able to do a project in New York City. And I tell you what, that was actually the most exhausted that I'd ever been, because we were running different departments around the clock. We were trying to fabricate steel and put it on trucks and ship it all the way to New York City. And then I would have to go out to New York City, which I'd never been to, and try to navigate New York City to find these job sites and try to handle the management of the deliveries, and then coordinating with the other contractors and things like that. I can't say, the probably the biggest lesson out of that one was kind of pre-planning and looking at, all the different areas of a project, and really trusting your team and allowing your team to really kind of develop their own muscles. And I had a good group of people around me. But back then, I think kind of micromanaged a little bit more than I should have. And I think I could have trusted my team with a little bit more, and then I wouldn't have been so exhausted. And so then, if I hadn't been so exhausted, I probably could have done a better job at the things that were my responsibility. And so, and not only that, but just taking on a huge project. And we've done that. I've done that several times. I'm kind of one of those guys where you go, man, are you stupid, or are you just, you just, don't understand. And it's crazy because sometimes you'll take on a huge project and you get a halfway through it and you go, man, why did I do this? Like, this is crazy. It's exhausting. The LA stadium was very exhausting just getting into it. Once we actually got the contract and we got into the work, that was actually really fun. Getting to that point was exhausting. I mean, they really ran us through the ringer trying to get us in there and get onto that project. But some of them, I do think that making sure that you've got the right people on your team, and then making sure that you can set those expectations. Back then, I really didn't know what I didn't know. But now looking back, I think by planning it out and then giving your team set expectations to say, here's what I'm hoping we can accomplish as a team, but then individually, here's what I expect from you, and making sure that we have clear expectations so that they don't show up and then you're just shooting darts at them all day and seeing how good they can handle that. I do think there's a lot of benefit in doing the planning. And I used to not think that way. I used to think, I'm just John Wayne. I'm going to show up every day and just, shoot Indians
Right.
or whatever,
Yeah.
and just kind of, go off the cuff. So the bigger the project, I do think that, you have to give it the respect it deserves with the planning and the team, and make sure that you're prepared for that so that you can go into it strong and not get behind on those details.
Yeah. I know when we talked before also, you talked about, though, often choosing complex, high-risk jobs over the easy big box builds. So tell me a little bit more about why you gravitate towards the harder path and what satisfaction you get from it.
Well, I think, and I'd said that because early on in my career, Home Depot was expanding rapidly. Lowe's was expanding rapidly. Walmart was growing. Targets, right? There was all these big boxes. But I started noticing there's 5 or 6 steel companies going after every one of these. So they're beating the price down. So you ended up having to start lowering your price to compete or to win a job like that. And there really wasn't a lot of thought or a lot of talent going into these projects. It was really just cookie cutter, just one after another, just putting pieces in place. So I started noticing that there's projects out there that don't have hardly anyone going after them because they are complex and they're difficult. And so even if you go after the more complex, difficult projects, you might have one competitor or 2 competitors, but you can also afford to really put some money into the project to make sure that you can hire the right team and you can spend the right amount of money to do the right planning and do the drawings correctly. And you win the job and you do a really good job on it, then then the company's profitable because you priced it higher, so that there's more money in there. We go after some really complex stuff right now, and we actually look for things. We'll actually look for projects where the clients will call us and say, man, we've been calling and we cannot get anyone to bid this project. And I love it. I'm like, we'll figure it out. Even if it's a little bit outside of our wheelhouse, like, you know what, we'll figure it out because we want to help the client get their project done. But then we also want to go after a project where we can price it correctly to make sure that it's going to be profitable for the company. And then also it gives you another sense of pride. Like, you mentioned the Hollywood Bowl. We got called on that job because they couldn't find anyone to do that project. And so we went in there and we did it. We were successful as part of the learning curve, but there's several projects that we've done where our clients tell us about how they struggled to find someone. And it's the same way with the guys that we hire. We try to hire guys that have the right attitude where they're ready to take on a challenge. They're ready to do something new, and they really want to do the research. They want to dig through the drawings and maybe mess around with a couple different strategies on how to put a certain building or structure together. And you need the right guys with the right mindset because there are a lot of guys out there that they don't want to go to work and be challenged. They just want to go to work and kind of, get through their 8 hours and then go home. And we want guys that want to build something really cool that they can be proud of. And I love it when we come out there and you see the guys taking pictures of what they built that day, and because they want to show people they're proud
Yeah,
of what they built, and they built
that's
something really
awesome.
cool.
So just having that innovative mindset is
Yeah.
what I'm hearing, just being willing to take on the challenges so you can grow. I mean, I think that speaks to growth, that speaks to innovation because you're doing things that haven't been done before and having to approach and solve problems that haven't been solved before. So I bet that keeps it super interesting too. And yeah, keeps you so you're always growing and always expanding the possibilities.
Yes. And it takes you all over Southern California. I mean, we've been everywhere from, the San Diego Mexico border. We've worked down there. We built a Border Patrol headquarters out in Boulevard that was very challenging. It's out in the middle of nowhere. We've been into San Diego at the airport and at Coronado Naval Station, all the way up to San Francisco area. We've been out to Vandenberg Air Force Base where SpaceX shoots off those rockets, and all the way up and down the coast. We've built things at University of California, Santa Barbara. And, and so the guys are moving around, they're doing different things. And that's what makes this trade so good for me is I get antsy. If I'm working in the same place for too long, then I get bored or disinterested, or I'm just looking for something to get out. And so that's the kind of guys that we're looking for, is guys that they want to work hard, but you also want to do something really cool. So that when you work hard and you look behind you, you see something, like building the pyramids. It's like, I'm
Yeah.
sure they were working really hard in the desert, in the hot sun, but when you're done, you go, man, we just did something that no one else can do.
Yeah, absolutely. Super satisfying. It gives you a sense of purpose and something to be proud of, definitely.
Yeah.
So tell me about landing the SoFi Stadium. I know that involved a lot of persistence. How do you convince yourself and your team to keep showing up when the odds are stacked against you?
That's the joke, is I don't know if I'm just thick-headed or ignorant or what it is, but there's been several projects like that where the people around me were not almost, they were totally discouraging, where they would go, man, you're just wasting your time. You're never going to get that job. And the more people said that, the more it drove me to just go, you know what? I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to keep going, keep knocking on that door, keep making phone calls. With that project there, it was so big. That's one thing that drew me to it, was that it was such an enormous undertaking because it's such a unique building. The engineering on that building is like nothing anyone's ever seen. And so we just kept bidding different parts of it. And they would send us revised drawing packages that had over 300 drawings in it. And they would say, hey, get me a price on this section by tomorrow. And
Oh,
we would
wow.
have to stay up all night and go through all these drawings and dig into it and try to put prices together and then try to come up with a proposal. And this is back before COVID. So instead of back then we weren't using Zoom. So we would have to put together a proposal and then drive to LA the next morning and then go to a meeting, an in-person meeting, and present these proposals and talk to them about different parts of the building. And we were a small company. We were in there with these huge steel companies. And it's funny because we were in a meeting and they went around the room and introduced all these billion-dollar companies. And then they said, well, who are you? And I go, we're nobody. I said, but if there's something you don't want to do, then call us. We'll do it. Like, I don't care if I have to put the toilets in. I'll put the toilets in so that when I bring my family here, I can say, hey, I put in these toilets. And so we
Right.
would joke about it. But I had to tell the people on my team, hey, we're going to keep going. We're not giving up. We're not going to quit. We're going to wait for all of these other people around us to quit and give up. And the second they do, we're going to be standing there waiting for this contract. And so, I mean, we had bid on everything from, the main structure, like there's a big ring around the main structure that holds that roof tight. We bid on the supports to build the oculus, which is what they call the scoreboard. So there was all kinds of temporary supports, the roof gutters, which you wouldn't imagine how huge the gutters are on that building. But we bid
Oh,
all kinds of things, and we just kept bidding and bidding and bidding until finally we started working with a company called Herrick, which is one of the largest. There's three major steel companies in the country that are just enormous, and Herrick is one of those. So we started working with them on the scoreboard, which they call the Oculus, and we just kept going and just kept going and kept going, and we just had to keep motivating each other. Like, don't give up, don't get frustrated, just keep going to the meetings, keep going through all this. And we had to do other projects in order to, pay the bills and while we were pursuing the stadium. And so once you get into it, then you get excited. And then you got a different kind of pressure where then you're like, hey, we got to do the job. We got to do it correctly, do it on schedule. And then we have to make money. We have to make sure that our budget is right and that all these prices work out, because you could have the best project in the world, but if you find out that you can't hit the schedule or the budget is busted, then that just ruins the entire thing.
right.
So,
Of course. Yeah, you've got to make money to
yeah,
put food
but
on the
you know
table
what? But
and keep
sometimes
things
that
going.
happens. Sometimes it
Yeah.
happens. You get all excited, you sign the contract, and then you get halfway into it and you go, "Oh my God, we don't have enough money." And then it's just miserable, because then you're thinking, well, is there a way we can recover some of this money? Is there a way that we overlooked something where we can figure it out? Or are we just going to take a loss on it? And then you have to go do other work to take that money and sink it into the project because you're committed to this contract.
Wow.
You can't give
So
up.
you're basically paying to work there
Exactly.
then
Yeah.
at that
Yeah.
point.
You're going to do it, and you're going to lose money, but you're committed to it because you're legally bound to that contract.
Right.
So
You have a
once
contract.
again, you can't quit. There's no quit. You have to get through it.
Yeah. In 25 years, what changes in steel construction technology have been the most transformative for the way projects get delivered?
Mm. Well, I mean, besides just the generic part of saying, when I started out, we weren't emailing. We weren't sending out emails. Matter of fact, when I started my first business in 2005, I would send my bids in over a fax machine, right? And all these young people don't even know what a fax machine is.
Right. They're like,
And
what?
yeah, but then we weren't utilizing email as much. Well, we weren't utilizing it at all. 25 years is a long time, right? So it's like in '99. Cell phones really weren't anywhere close to where they are now. We weren't utilizing email, and we weren't. And then in 2006, 2007, the military, we started using 3D models. And I got to say, 3D modeling is just a phenomenal tool that now it's almost a requirement with most of our clients, to where we use that not only to help with the initial design and to make sure the design is going to be accurate, but we also use that to coordinate with other trades and make sure that there's no conflicts between our design and our product and their design and their product, which speeds up the entire process. Because if you talk to contractors that were working back in the 80s and the 90s, things went a lot slower on the job site because they would have so many problems with, adding the mechanical and the electrical and the plumbing, because they would have to work around all kinds of other materials and things, because the drawings, there's so many issues with overlaying, different trades. So I do think that that part of it has made it way more efficient, and it's cool. It's a way to get these young kids or these young people that love technology and they love working on computers, to get them into construction, because they get to actually build buildings on their computer screen. And it's not just a game. It's not just a toy. Like, that building can actually be built. Like, if you go out there right now to the LA Stadium, I still have the 3D model for that scoreboard. And when you go through it, you're just visualizing all these things, and then you can break it down to a certain dimension so that how things are actually going to be laid out.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. So technology has made things a lot more
Yeah.
efficient and quicker. and helped you like foresee problems without having to make the mistake or undo it
Hmm.
or learn while, yeah,
And
in
a lot of young
process.
people, I think, don't know, and that's what I love about Mike Rowe is that Mike Rowe is really trying to educate the young people on how many opportunities there are in construction. A lot of young people have no idea how many different jobs there are in the construction industry that have nothing to do with wearing boots and getting your hands dirty. I mean, there is so many administrative. There's financial. There's planning. There's all kinds of analytics and digital work. There's all kinds of computer work, the modeling, the engineering, architecture. All that fun stuff can all be done without putting on a pair of boots or getting your hands dirty. And
So it's not all the dirty jobs. Yeah,
that's
you can
right. Yeah.
do more.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's the thing is they don't know. They look at it and they go, "Oh, they're just a bunch of big dumb iron workers or a bunch of big dumb construction guys." And the fact is that those guys are the stereotypical construction guys. But I mean, it's a $1 trillion industry. I mean, there's trillions of dollars in construction. So they have the money to spend on the advancement and the evolution of technology and how that can streamline and make our jobs more efficient because we're spending all kinds of money. I mean, if somebody came to me right now and said, this thing costs $50,000, but if you use it, you can save $100,000. Like you go, okay, let's look at it. Let's look at it and see if that works because that just makes sense, right? You would spend
Yeah,
$1 to save two, right? So
of course.
so that's the way construction works. And a lot of times, what they do is they'll actually invest a lot of money into things and then it ends up not working out. I mean, I've seen companies where they spent millions of dollars on designing certain types of systems to build a building more economically. And then over time, something just doesn't work out. The engineering doesn't work out, or, and I could give you examples, but I will spare you from that.
Well, I know safety has also evolved dramatically over the last, 20 years or so.
Ridiculous.
Sometimes, yeah, to the point of frustration, like you were talking
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
How do you balance efficiency with the need for increasing safety standards?
You have to put money in your budget. And I mean, obviously we care about our guys and we always tell them it's like there's nothing worse that I could imagine than to go out to a job and end up having someone get hurt or killed. Because it damages everyone in that area. Anyone that's on a job that has ever been around a fatality or a bad injury, it sticks with you for the rest of your life. You remember it. You remember all the details. I've even had guys tell me they remembered the smell. They remembered the smell on a certain time when there was a horrible accident. So that's the worst part of it. But then there's also the financial repercussions to a company to where after that, I mean, the company, they might not survive because their insurance goes up. They have lawsuits and all these other things that go on. So it's actually the best choice is to train your guys to make sure that you're hiring the right people that are smart enough to understand their surroundings so that they're aware of their surroundings so they're not careless. And then you train them. And you train them for all these different situations and you train them to be smart so that they can make good decisions because safety is not a perfect science. A lot of times your people will get into certain situations that is not in the textbook. There's no written procedure. There's no perfect way to do it, but you're expecting them to make a smart decision to make sure that they can do it safely. And if they can't do it safely, we try to train them to stop everything and come talk to their supervisor and have that supervisor talk to all these other people and say, hey, we have a dangerous situation over here. We need to come up with a solution. And I know a lot of people outside the industry don't understand this, but or don't know. But in construction, when we train all these people, even the new guy that doesn't know anything has a right to stop the work if he doesn't feel safe, right? And it's not the safe space that they're talking about on college campuses, but the good thing is it gives him the power to say, hey, I don't feel good about this. I feel like I could get hurt here. So he can just raise his hand or yell and say, hey, hold on, let's just stop everything. Help me understand this because I feel like we're doing something where someone could get injured or killed. And to give them that power and to do that is a huge benefit, because I got to tell you, we didn't have that benefit when I started out. They would just yell at you and go, "Hey, stop being a sissy," and you get out there and you do it. And so safety is constantly evolving. I do think some of it is fluff. I think that, safety, I mean, it's a business. So the safety industry is a business. And so I do think that sometimes they evolve things unnecessarily. But I do think that, just one life is too much, right? So we always try to prevent that. We spend good money and a lot of time training the guys to avoid dangerous situations. And so it's a necessary part of the industry, but it is something that has to be, I think it has to be tracked, like how much it costs. And
right. It's part of the business and costs. And at the same time, it evolving and creating that awareness, and then giving your employees the autonomy to make their own decisions when it comes to risk and safety, and authority, or empower them to say something or bring it to your attention if there is a concern.
Right. Well, you want to train them to where they make the right decision in those situations. You want to, you don't want them to just be able to make their own. You want them to be educated so they know, hey, I have to tie off in this situation, or I have to get help over here, or I need to use a machine on this certain part of it so that they can be safe. But it's a difficult thing to manage because it's constantly changing. And then, it's just like raising your teenagers. And when you kind of let them be their own person, you're kind of, trying to train them up to say, hey, just be aware of your surroundings. Like when they're driving, or when they're, out on their own in the city or whatever. And you're saying, just don't be staring at your phone walking through the middle of the hood, like be aware of your surroundings.
Common sense,
yeah,
right?
Be aware of your surroundings and kind of have that gut instinct when you think things are getting squirrely, right? So we try to train our people for that. I think safety is necessary, and knowledge is power. We try to tell our guys, we want them to know as much as they possibly can so that they can make the right decisions when they're in that spot.
Right, absolutely. Just training them as much as possible, giving them the tools, the awareness, and because you can't put a price on a human life.
That's right. Well, you can't even. I got to tell you can't put a price on losing a hand. I mean, there's injuries out there, and you think about it. We have young guys; they're in their 20s. I mean, the worst thing ever is to have a 20-year-old get injured severely or get killed. To where then they're injured and they're handicapped. They're disabled for the rest of their life. And so we try to make sure that we pound it into their head all the time. Like you making this one bad decision could cost you a finger. It could cost you a hand. It could cost you your life. So, and especially with steelwork. Steelwork is one of the most dangerous trades. And unfortunately, we've seen a couple of those, and we've been close by a couple of bad injuries, and it really changes your perspective, makes you slow down a little bit and pay more attention, and so that's one of the things when we start picking employees and new hires. We try to pick. I mean, I like athletes. I like guys that are athletic because they're more aware of their feet and their hands and their surroundings, and they can move quick and they have good reactions. So I do like taking former athletes and putting them into ironwork, and we've had a lot of good luck with that. But training is essential. A lot of training is essential to make sure that they have the tools they need and the knowledge that they need in order to make good decisions.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about 3D modeling. With the rise of AI and digital collaboration, do you think construction is finally catching up with tech or leading it?
It's hard for me to say. I mean, I used to tell people that I think construction is one of the leading industries because they spend a lot of money. I mean, I can't say that they're leading. The technology industry and robotics and all that stuff. I mean, that's all they do, right? That's all they do is develop and constantly. So I don't think construction is keeping up with them and leading, but I do think that construction is constantly looking for ways to do things more efficiently. I think AI is going to be a huge tool that we can use. I know. My kids probably make fun of me because I've been asking them questions and I'm trying to figure it out. I'm like, hey, can this thing do this for me, man? And so Um, I do think it's a great tool. I think that that anything like that, if you use it and you're looking for ways to make it productive, that it can be a benefit. And construction is definitely pushing the envelope in technology. It always has. I mean, ever since I realized that in 2006 when they were doing 3D modeling and they were really pushing it when other people had no idea what was going on. I mean, the regular construction industry wasn't even using it, and the military industry was. And so they're always looking for that. I think there's a huge benefit to that, and I think that could be a draw for young people or tech people that want to be involved in that. To where I think there's always an opportunity there, and there's a huge education. A huge need for education from other industries. And I love to see industries cross paths with construction. Just today I had a meeting with a guy that builds parts for SpaceX and he builds parts for Boeing. And so, we work with those guys to where it's like, they build certain products for certain things and then we build the buildings that they work in, right? And
Right.
so it's
Yeah.
really fun to see that because we're kind of the same, but then we're kind of different. And so
Right.
I love to see that too in construction. I love to see when people can be creative and say, hey, you know what, like I might be a tech guy, but I could help you streamline some different things and make it happen. I think there's so many benefits. I mean, I've seen some really cool products in the last few years for construction, either to handle your guys on the job and their schedules, geo tracking. We've done the geo tracking thing for all of our trucks and our guys and the job sites and there's some really cool things that are coming up. And so I think, small businesses need to be aware of that so that they can try to utilize some of those in order to, save some money and save some time.
Yeah. And you've said construction needs a new generation of leaders and project managers. What do you look for when mentoring younger workers?
We mentioned earlier, like, I mean, you start out with a good attitude, right? We want people to come in that are going to be positive. They're going to be looking to learn. They're looking to work hard and to be productive. So, I love people that have some pride and they want to take pride in their work. So that means at the end of the day, they want to be able to look back, whether they're looking at their desk or they're looking at the job site, they can say, hey, look at this. This is what I did. I did a good job today. I got all these things done. And so, I mean, young people, there's several different things, but I mean, the first thing is just to show up and be dependable and then have a good attitude and be willing to learn and not feel like a lot of the young people that I don't think have been successful with us is when they come in and they act like they're too good to do something. Like and it's like, well, who do you think's supposed
It's
to
like
do that? Yeah.
entitled, yeah,
Yeah.
attitude.
When you
Okay.
come in and you're the rookie, then you know what? You need to take out the trash or you need to do those medial things. And I think that's a good character builder is when you have someone that doesn't care. They don't care, right? They'll do whatever you ask them to do and they'll do it with a smile on their face. They'll have a good attitude and they'll try to do the very best job that they can do. And I think we've had some that come out of college, they have a college degree. So all of a sudden they think that they deserve to have, some upper level position and some sort of respect when, that to me doesn't mean anything. Like if you do a college degree, that means, yes, you did a good job. You went to class, you did what you were supposed to do. But when you want to come into a company, it doesn't matter whether, I don't care. That's the thing is on certain aspects, you say, are you qualified? But your qualifications still don't mean that you can do the job. Because in order to
Right.
do the job, I think you've got to have the right attitude and you've got to be willing to learn. You've got to be willing to listen. Even with me, I've been doing this 25 years. When I get a new client, I can't walk in there like I own the place. I have to go in there and I have to say, hey, let me know how you want this to go, right? Because you're my client. So you're my boss. So if I come in and my client says, hey, first thing I want you to do is clean up all this trash and take the trash out. I'm going to go, okay, we're going to take the trash out and we're going to do a really good job. And so I try to get that through to the people that work with me or under me is that, I try to make sure they know I'm not too good to do anything, but everybody has a boss, right? Even when I
Yeah.
come home from work, I have a boss at my house. And if I come in with a bad attitude and I'm not willing to take out the trash or take care of whatever needs to be taken care of, then it's not going to be a good afternoon for me. you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So just approaching every situation, demonstrating humility,
That's
I
right.
think, when it comes and demonstrating that, right, there's nothing above your pay grade, even if you're the boss.
That's
Right.
right. And you know
Yeah.
what? I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was, I don't know, maybe it was Jefferson or something, but he said, I would take enthusiasm on fire over knowledge on ice, right? So so if you come in here and you tell me how smart you are, but you're not going to do what needs to be done, it doesn't matter, right? I'll take someone that has no knowledge, but they're enthusiastic and they'll do whatever I ask them to do. So if you have a good attitude with enthusiasm, I'll take that 10 times over some guy that comes in that is supposed to know everything, that's supposed to have the right degree or the right resume. Bad attitude will kill you every time.
Right. I think my husband says attitude over aptitude.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Right. So, what can companies do to attract and retain talent in such a demanding trade?
You know what? I do think, like I said earlier, I think laying out clear expectations, especially for this younger generation. I mean, I've heard different leaders from Simon Sinek and Dave Ramsey to Charlie Kirk. Even all those guys were talking about how the young people, they want more information on the front end. They want more direction. And like whether it's, I don't know, Gen Z or Gen whatever it is, right? Like but I do think that it helps both of us, right? So if I bring in someone that, like a young person, like I have a couple of young people in my family that are young college age or just graduated college. I do think that when you ask them to do something, they want more information, and I think laying out clear expectations is a wonderful thing because it holds both of you accountable. And because everybody, I think, has had one of those bad bosses where they go, you know what, if you do all these things, I'll give you a raise, right? And then you do all those things and then they don't give you the raise. And then you're like, hey, man, you said you were going to give me a raise, right? So I think accountability going both ways, those expectations, having those written down. And I even tell my two older kids when they go and do jobs and they work for people, I say, you know what, if they don't write down the expectations, I want you to ask for it, or you write them down and you say, hey, I really want to know what you expect of me because I want to know that I'm winning. When I go
Yeah.
to work every day and I work really hard, I want to know that when I knock these things out, that I'm doing exactly what you expect me to do. Because the worst thing we can do is not lay out expectations, and then one of us is frustrated, right? So,
Right.
so from what I've heard and what I've seen and experienced, I do think that showing them the real, the best parts of the business is saying, hey, look at all this technology. Look at you could work here for 30 years. That construction's not going anywhere, and they can move into different parts of the business depending on what their interests and their talents are. I don't expect someone to come and work for me and just stay out in the sunlight all day every day for 30 years unless that's what they want to do. But if they want to
Hmm.
be a project manager, or if they want to be an estimator, or even if they want to grow up and be their own contractor, I'll help them do that. That would be wonderful. But there's all kinds of opportunity in the construction industry for young people. So they know that they could get in here and start learning, and that they don't have to worry about, well, what am I going to do in 5 years? They don't have to worry about that. I mean, some of
Right.
these industries, I feel like young people, when they go to college and they start looking at degrees, I think they really need to look at the longevity of some of those career paths, because I mean, technology is changing things. There's always progressive destruction, where, they got robots in factories now that are making things, and that's gonna do away with some of those factory worker jobs. And AI is causing a lot of disruption in certain industries right now, right? Like coding and things like that.
Hmm.
So I kind of quizzed my older two when they went to college, and I'm like, hey, what are you studying? What are you going to do? What kind of job is that going to? And what are you going to get paid? Are you going to be able to make a living? I think quizzing them in that and letting them know that construction's not going anywhere. There's no way that that this industry is not going to continue to evolve and prosper.
Right. So even helping them establish expectations of what their career choice is going to bring them.
You better believe it. I
Yeah.
love it. I mean, I love coaching. I have 4 kids. I love young employees and being able to help mentor them, and I kind of wish, I'd had more, more mentors when I was younger to say, hey, tell me what you're thinking. Like, why are you doing this?
Right.
Maybe I could have made better decisions if I'd had some mentors in there that said, hey, let's talk this through. Let's talk about this decision you're making and see if maybe that's the right one.
So true. I mean, even when I went to college, I had no idea. And I just picked something. I'm like, that sounds like fun. So I finally graduated after 3, different majors. And,
Yeah.
I got through it. But right, I think mentoring is super important to the younger generation because we don't know what lies ahead, or they don't know what lies ahead. And people with, like, going back to the wisdom, people who've been there, done that, have the scars to prove it, right?
Well, sometimes I tell these young people, I don't want them to go to college and then because they don't know where they're going, then they kind of feel like they're just going to stay in college and I'm just going to stay here. Then I'll get my master's and then maybe I'll figure it out. And then maybe when I get my master's and I still don't know what I'm doing, then maybe I'll just stay here and I'll do something else and I'll get this and I'll get that. And I'm like, go to work, go do something and then figure out if you like it. If you don't like it, then find something else. LinkedIn is an amazing tool. Indeed, there's so many opportunities out there. There's so many companies that would love to take a sharp young person and just teach them, the bottom part of their business. And then you can see if you like it. I got to tell you, if you would have talked to me when I was 18 or 19 years old, there's no way I would have said, oh, I'm going to be a steel contractor. No way. Because my dad was a contractor and it did not look like fun to me, And so there's no way that these kids at 18 and 20, there's very few of them that actually know what their interest is and know what they want to do. And so I always tell them, you should just go work something that sounds interesting. If you want to go work on an Alaskan fishing boat, go do it, right? Like, go work for the circus, go work for the, just go do something that sounds interesting, and then you'll either figure out whether you like it or you don't like it, and then you can move on.
That's true, because you honestly never know what direction life's going to take you. Because even if you're heading down one path, something can happen, and then you end up, it's like a winding road.
Yeah.
And I've spoken to like so many leaders, and they say the same thing, talking about their journeys, like where they ended up was completely not at all what they started out.
Well, then don't even throw in the whole marriage and baby thing, right? Because
exactly.
I mean, how many people have had their whole life go in a different direction because they fall in love with somebody, they decide to get married, and then that person, is in the Navy, and then they go to the East Coast, and then they, and then they're in Germany, and
Absolutely.
I mean, it's like
right.
you never know.
Yeah.
But the big thing, have you listened to Gary Vaynerchuk?
Absolutely, yeah.
So
I know him well.
I don't listen to him much anymore, but I used to back when he was like kind of new on the scene, and I love the fact that he was talking to young people and mentoring young people, and he always said, the sweet spot is when you figure out what you like to do, and then what you're good at, and then how you can make a living, and then when those 3 circles overlap, that's like the perfect like sweet spot, right? And that's very difficult to find. It's very difficult to find, but I always try to tell young people that it's like start with things that interest you and then try to add in things that you're good at, right? Like I love basketball, but I'm not going to go to the NBA and be able to play basketball, right? But so if you take the things that you enjoy and the things that you're good at and then try to figure out how you can make a living doing that, then that is the perfect thing to strive for.
Yeah, yes, so true. Like I ended up with a degree in theater after, I first went to, it was psychology, then it went to communications, then I went to theater, which is what I graduated with in my bachelor's, having no idea what I was going to do. I ended up in marketing, which I didn't even know anything about marketing, which is the intersection of all of those.
Right.
It's psychology, it's understanding your target market and your audience, it's communications, because that's what you're doing, is you're communicating with your clients and helping them communicate with their audience. And it's telling stories, right? So, and we do video, we do all of that. So it was like the perfect combination of all of that. And so kind of like you said, just kind of going into things that I thought were interesting, having no idea. And it led me somewhere that was like the perfect combination of all of them.
That's wonderful.
And, here I am doing a podcast, which is, I guess, theatrical or communications as well, right? But yeah, that's a good insight. Or I can hear the passion in your voice at talking about passing down knowledge. And also before people retire, right? Because that knowledge and that wisdom, if someone retires and they don't have the opportunity to share it, then it dies along with them.
That's right.
How do you see, unfortunately, how do you see your role in shaping the future of steel and mentoring the next wave?
I mean, that's a good question. I try to do what I can in my own circle. I've had, different ideas and dreams of trying to make more of an impact in that area. I think, at one time, my brother and I wanted to start a welding school at an orphanage down in Mexico to try to help those young people learn a trade while they were in the orphanage before they became of age, so that they would actually have a trade to go to when they got out of the orphanage. That's something that's still interesting to me right now. We've been training our guys. We've been taking guys that have showed a lot of talent, and they've been working with us for a couple years, and we started to help them learn how to weld and help them, move on through their career, so that we get them into different classes so they can just add more little badges to their sleeve, so they learn all these different parts of the business. I've also done some research, and we've got a couple people that are interested in helping us. But what I'd really like to do is start a little apprenticeship program for the companies out here in Southern California, where, you're hiring guys. And a lot of them, during certain times, they don't have the time to train these guys, and they don't have the time to really train them up to the level that they'd like to, because we're all so in the trenches of running our business and trying to hit all of our quotas, right? So I do feel like if we had just an apprenticeship or a training program that kind of helps guys go from day one, all the way through the first year or two of their career in whatever part of this industry that it is. I'm just going to say it and put it out there, but I'm not a big fan of the Ironworkers Union, and I do think that there's a disservice on the non-union part, that we don't have any type of training programs or non-union apprenticeship type programs, because the union is such a huge commitment for these guys to take on. And really, I mean, we live in the valley in between San Diego and LA. And so there's 100 miles here between San Diego and LA. And so the unions are in San Diego and LA, and they have apprenticeship programs. And from what I've seen, they do a really good job. If you have a sharp person that goes in there and tries to learn it and make the most of it, I think they do a good job of training their guys. I just don't promote with all these guys that live in this area and do this kind of work. I don't promote for them to go union, because it's a total change in their trade set. And if everybody went union, then no one out here would be able to build, because they wouldn't be able to afford it, right? Because the union prices would just skyrocket. So that's a whole controversial discussion, that can go down a certain road, but the best thing that keeps the union strong and the non-union strong is that there's two of them, and they're competing against each other, supposedly. But that's what I would love to do. Is I would love to try to put together some sort of apprenticeship program to where, young people or people that are new to the trade, when they come in, we would have some sort of documented program for these companies to say, you know what, we could have this person do, 5 to 10 hours a week of classroom work, so that not only are they in the business, working in the business on the bottom end to start working their way up, but they could also sit down at a desk and go through some of the, the documented processes and requirements, so that they could understand more of the details around the things that they're asked to do. And I think that could really help people make it through the first, 6 to 12 months of their career. And I think there's an offset there. I think that they would be more productive if we had more education on the front end, and I think they would also be safer on the front end if we had a better onboarding or documentation process there. And a lot of the bigger companies have it, but a lot of the small companies don't. I know for a fact they don't, because there's nothing there that's easily accessible for them to grab. So that is something that I would like to do. Depending on how soon I have time in my schedule to start putting towards that. But I
Yeah.
have a couple of people that are very interested and qualified in helping me put that together to where we really want to start putting that on the board. So hopefully in the next few years, I'll be able to make something happen there.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, that sounds awesome and empowering to the next generation coming up and being able to share what you've learned so they get that much further ahead and don't have to uh, start at ground zero if they can start with that base of wisdom.
Right.
Yeah. Well, Daniel, this has been an inspiring conversation. Thank you for sharing your journey and perspective. For those listening who'd like to connect with you or learn more about your consulting work, what's the best way to reach you?
You know what? We're constantly trying to upgrade our website to keep up with some of the things that we're doing. So we just recently kind of revamped the whole thing. So they can go to steeldesignbuild.com and all my information is on there. And we try to help in all kinds of different aspects. Really, any structure of any kind that is made out of steel, we've done it, or we have the capabilities of helping someone with that. So it could be anything from a backyard patio cover to a full on building. I mean, we're working on several now that are 100,000 square feet, and and we're all over the place. We do structural steel, miscellaneous metals, which is like all the stairs and guardrails and canopies, and we even do some of that crazy artwork that you see in Palm Springs or LA, when somebody wants to make a real good solid piece of art, then we can help them do that as well. But so we mix it up. We love doing small things. We work with a couple of small private schools, so we help them with lunch canopies and awnings and things like that. And then we also do some bigger projects. We also help other companies that might be in kind of a tough spot where sometimes they have too much work and they need help, kind of managing the work. And then other times they don't have enough work and they need us to help them find more projects to kind of just keep them busy and fill their coffers. And then other times we could do training. So if they go, man, I just feel like we're a little bit dysfunctional, like maybe you can come in and help us kind of streamline some things between departments. We've done a good amount of that to where we try to go in and evaluate different departments and make sure they're communicating properly, and that the work that's done in one department actually complements what is being done in the other department. And we have fun doing that because we love people and we love kind of seeing improvements. We love seeing things change, and then when we get them to a place where things are streamlined, then we can say, hey, you're ready for some more business. So let's help you get some more business. So
Yeah.
we love that. And Southern California is so busy. There's so many amazing things going on all the way from San Diego and Orange County and LA, all the way up into Ventura County. We're doing a lot of work up there. And so there's plenty to do. There's plenty of jobs for all these people that are looking to get involved.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah. So I'm hearing you do a wide variety of different types and sizes of projects, and then the consulting work as well.
Oh,
like
yeah.
you're saying,
Yeah.
and partnering with other companies in different ways. So, and what about LinkedIn? Can they reach out to you on LinkedIn?
Oh,
as
definitely.
well?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm,
Okay.
I think there's only 15,000 Daniel Williams on LinkedIn, but if they look up Steel Design and Build, I created that company with that name because I wanted people to understand what we do, but I also wanted them to be able to find us. So, anything you're trying to do with steel, the more complicated, we love it. So usually when you want to do something complicated, it makes it a little bit more difficult to find the people to help you do it. And so that's what I wanted. I wanted people to know, well, man, if I'm trying to design this and I'm trying to build this thing out of steel, I want to be able to find somebody. So, I mean, like you and I talked about a list of things that we've done. So we've been at the San Diego airport. We've been at LAX. We built a tiger enclosure at the San Diego Wild Animal Park. We've done a couple other things with the San Diego Zoo, and a lot of military work that we can't necessarily advertise, but it's always fun and challenging work because we're super patriotic and We love this country, and we think that our veterans deserve to have nice facilities to work in. But we've been up all the way through Orange County and LA, and we've done all kinds of projects from industrial and commercial, even private stuff. We've got a couple of custom homes along the coast that we did, and so we're all over the place.
Yeah, and not just California, right? I mean, you'll go beyond California.
Yeah,
with projects.
we've done stuff in Boise and Utah, Las Vegas. We actually built we helped a couple of companies build the homeless shelter in Las Vegas, and Arizona. We've been around a couple of things there. Right now, we'll go anywhere and we'll try to help anybody. So. It really doesn't matter where they're at. We'll try that. But right now, we are definitely busy enough in Southern California.
Excellent. All right. Well, Daniel, thank you again. It's been a pleasure talking to you. And to our audience, make sure to follow and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode of Industry Ignited. Until next time, stay bold, stay curious, and keep igniting industry.